Thanks for joining here with Thomas. But I want to introduce what we're going to be doing here on a weekly, kind of bi-weekly basis. Today, we're going to learn more about Thomas, his background, do a kind of interview style video, learn a little bit more about what he was doing before joining the company, and then what, of course, led up to kind of getting involved. But going forward, going to talk about the company, of course, news as the company has it, the industry, and a bunch of other things. And would love to invite anyone with questions or things they want to see in future videos. Please drop them below. We definitely going to do some Q&As and some other interactive things as we go. But first things first, Thomas, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, Jason. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm doing as well as we can be. I know we're both in Ontario with the super lockdown, but yeah, no, things are good. Things are good. But here, without further ado, usually like to kick it off like early life, call it maybe where you went to school and then first couple jobs, and we'll go through the career path.
Yeah,
Cool.
sure. Well, I went to grew up in London. My parents were immigrants, like 75% of Canadians immigrated from Holland. I'm number 8 of 9 children. And so Dutch, scrubby Dutch work ethic, and all through elementary and high school, paper routes, snow cleaning business, that translated through working my way through university. Went to Carleton and finished up at Western. Went sailing for a year and a half. Sailed across the Atlantic from Spain to the Canaries and through the Greater and Lesser Antilles. Out of school, started working for CP Express and Transport in the trucking business. Took all of my sort of sales experience and created a national telemarketing operation for CP Express and Transport, and demonstrated growth in their most profitable ma and pa shipper segment that we set up in Moncton, New Brunswick, when McKenna was premier in recruiting national companies to open bilingual telemarketing operations in New Brunswick. I took a transfer. My wife wanted to move back as we were going to start our family, and I took a transfer to London, Ontario. This is just when CP went through a downsizing, so I was downsized, and I took all of my knowledge about CP, went across the street to the McCain Brothers Day and Ross company, and talked to the terminal manager there. Asked him what his priorities were, and he explained that they had a lot of inbound business, but no outbound business from London. So I said, well, I can turn that around very quickly. Went and sold, more than $1 million of freight out of London, and we turned that operation into a profitable operation, the first time in its history. And then I got bored with that, went into medical equipment sales, started, selling physicians on essentially a very technical scientific sell of leukocyte depletion and hydrophobic breathing circuit filtration. Got bored with that, and I got into the junior capital game and started with my first company was the flow-through company.
Here, before you get into this, let's unpack a little bit. Incredible story so far. I need to ask. Sorry, you're setting up telemarketing operations. Walk me through how you got so lucky and how that happens, and kind of that case study there. I mean, I'm assuming pretty early days. You mentioned kind of the bilingual kind of telemarketing.
Yeah.
Walk me through kind of how that came about.
Yeah, well, actually, Canada Trust got a license to sell MasterCard. At the time, there were only Visa was sold by one bank and MasterCard by Bank of Montreal, and the banks were, charging 4%, 4.5% to clear a credit card transaction. And Canada Trust got into business and said, we can create quite a healthy business here at 2.5%, or down to 1.9% credit card clearing. So they hired a bunch of university students. They had a plan to create association rates. So if you were a member of Flowers Canada, the Retail Association of Canada, some other association, then we could call you and ask you if you were a member of that association. Of course, we had the association list, and we could pitch you on saving, 50% of every credit card transaction, putting that money right into the merchant's pockets. And that was a very successful campaign. So when I got to CP Express, I was essentially seconded to the vice president of sales and marketing, and my job was to review the whole business from the bottom up and the top down, and pitch senior management on ways to improve the business. And it very quickly, looking at the sales side of the business, the salespeople were running around with books of 600, 700 accounts, and they were really making 5 to 8 sales calls a day. And it made no sense that, they were dealing with the top 50, maybe top 100 clients, and everybody else was just in their book. So I said, let's segment the business so that, the account managers have the top 100 accounts they want. Let's create a national telemarketing operation to bring a focus to this segment of the business that isn't getting any attention. And they said, great idea, go do it. So that led me to set it up in New Brunswick.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm assuming, training salespeople, all that stuff, obviously, I really, and I know we've chatted before. I wanted to get into kind of, sales and how that's helped you in your career. And, what, walk me through that a little bit. I mean, obviously you're just always selling something, whether,
Yeah,
even if you're a doctor, you're selling kind of that passion and,
yeah.
belief to a patient. I'm curious, just kind of your feelings on how sales has helped you.
Well, my saying is, it's not who you know, it's who you call each day. That is important in terms of, you reaching your objectives. And so I have a real passion for this company because it has saved the life of very, friends of mine, and I've witnessed its unique properties to turn around people who need uh, circulation where their circulation is deteriorated. And so, I have I have no problem explaining the opportunity here to investors and physicians alike.
Yeah, no, awesome. Well, here, so now let's go in capital markets. I cut you off. So, yeah, you finally find out about capital markets. Curious, what made you get into capital markets? Of course, like, were you seeing friends do it? Were you, obviously you were maybe investing yourself. Curious, kind of how that path happened.
Yeah, it was actually investing, and my family was in the business, and so I took the opportunity to follow in their footsteps, and reached out, and got an opportunity to pick up some part-time work, and that led to 3 part-time positions. And before I know it, I was running a public, junior gold company that had the Tyranite mine in Gilganda, which was a former Sir Harry Oakes owned mine that ran up until World War II, when the men left to go to war. So it was high grade, and and uh, and so we we financed that, and started uncovering the value there.
Wow.
That
So,
Yeah.
I mean, how interesting. So, you start bunch of different, sales roles, but bunch of different companies, and then you're selling, kind of, pharma type stuff,
Yeah,
and then you get into mining.
yeah, I know.
Like,
Well,
what said,
it
hey, mining? I know Canada's hard to avoid mining, but just so curious. Was it, hey, mining looks great?
yeah, well, it was, the junior mining markets were pretty hot. This is just pre-Bre-X, and
Yeah.
so the gold market was coming out of a slump. Um, Bre-X caught everybody's gold imagination, unfortunately, and and so that was the right place, the right time scenario.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So now, what can you walk me through? And I know people are probably familiar with the Briac stories. If not, it's a pretty quick Google search. But so interesting. So you have a mining success. Now walk me through kind of what happens next. I'm assuming Briac's happened. You're like, whoa, this is crazy, and you look at a different industry, or what happened?
Yeah, Brix blew up the junior capital markets for mining,
Yeah.
and there was a technology that was just in its infancy, and we call it the Internet of Things now. But in 1999 we called it e-manufacturing, and we were the first company to go public as a Internet of Things for manufacturing. And that was e-manufacturing networking. So we took a company that had a pre-public market valuation of 3 million, and it had an opening market cap of 60 million.
Not bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's crazy. So pretty trend aware, getting into internet stuff early. So okay, interesting. So internet things happen, have a success there, like you said, 20x kind of right out of the gate. And now walk me through. So what happens after the internet? I'm sure people are gonna have questions. If we have to dive
yeah,
into the little segments, we can. But so what's after
sure.
the internet?
Yeah, no. So, well, my next pub co, actually, was my next private co uh, was Therabate, the predecessor company to Hemostemix. And so a very good friend of mine, Roger Burgesson, went into a hospital for a routine angiogram and was convinced to have an emergency stent operation, which went horribly wrong. They perforated the artery, gave him a massive heart attack, and put him into a coma, ruined 50% of his heart function, and just about killed him. And he called me. I was talking to him, just after he was out of a coma, and he was explaining to me he's using the Muhammad Ali, just doing the rope a dope, to try and survive. I was at Xerox at the time, in their Xerox Business Services, and Roger went to Thailand and was patient number 35 of this company. He introduced me to the principals. That was in November of 2005. I talked to the principals, invited them to Toronto, and we put a deal together in 48 hours at the Royal York, um, where I would create a new co. It would be a licensee. We'd have the license rights to this technology for all of North America, in exchange for paying them $250,000 a quarter in advance.
Okay, crazy. Wow, what a story. And I know the origin stories are so cool. Invite them to the Royal York Classic.
Yeah,
That I'm sure we'll get questions. So cool. So you guys start up this company. You just have to pay them 250,000 in advance each quarter. Then walk me through early stages. So you're involved like super early deal making, getting the deal structured,
yeah.
and walk me through the next steps.
So next steps was really, the licensor was spending the money faster than we could raise it. So even though we were meeting our obligation as licensee, they were not meeting their obligation as licensor, and they were constantly putting our license in jeopardy. So we said, look, the only way this is going to work is if we amalgamate the two companies and everybody essentially get on the same team. That way, we can raise the money the company needs if we can take it public. You guys can do the science, and we'll get that way come together.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So company comes together, and now keep going. Keep giving me the story.
Well, then it gets complicated, because in business, like in marriage, sometimes you get to pick your partner, sometimes you don't. In this case, we didn't get to pick our partner, and these guys. So we amalgamate. We do a $4 million raise. The original shareholders had 70% of the company. We had a standstill agreement to allow management to raise the money the company needed, and to take the company public. And we had a standstill agreement with respect to the structure of the board, where there were 5 directors, 3 independents to protect the minority shareholders, and 2 seats for the major shareholder. And we get so we get the technology together with the money, and no sooner get that transaction closed, and the the major shareholder decides that he's going to call a shareholders meeting, replace management, replace the board, screw the minority shareholders out of at this point $8.5 million, and walk away with the technology. And I said, over my dead body, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, so you come in, you say, like, let's say you save the company, things are they were, a bumpy pass, and, we won't get into it too much now, but, so then walk me through, you finally get it through, you like, early wins, really, speed bump after speed bump. And then, what seems like, you kind of step back for a number of years. Curious if you want to talk about what you did during that time, and then also kind of what made you come back.
Yeah, sure. Well, so we ended up diluting those guys out. We raised another $1 million. That led to a lawsuit that took 3 years, and a couple $1 million more of capital, which we raised, and we won at the essentially the appeal court of Ontario, and won and bought those guys out. That in late 2011, I'd raised most of that money out of Calgary, and the folks wanted to, the view was that the company should move closer to the money. I didn't want to move to Calgary, and so the company moved to Calgary. I'd stepped back and went on with my life, and then the company went public in 2014. Hired a hired uh, a PhD MD out of Boston who had no clue how to raise money for a junior biotech. And so it went 2 years without really raising any money apart from the RTO round. He failed. Shareholders got into a proxy fight, and the company changed hands yet again to a new shareholder group, the Kyle McCofka Jed Wood group. And we don't need to get into that now.
Yeah, but what are you doing in this time? And then we'll talk about what made you come back. I'm just curious.
Yeah,
I know,
sure.
before we hit record, you've talked about some charity stuff, and you're pretty passionate in that regard. Were you doing some of that, or were you doing other things?
No, actually, I went back into the junior mining side, and I
Oh
ran.
wow.
Yeah, I ran a company called Broadway Gold, which had the Broadway and Madison mine in Montana, and financed it. Broadway became, we did a transaction that spun the Broadway mine out, and and Broadway became MindMed. So MindMed's, high flyer, and actually very interesting company. Just went public, or just went recently uplisted to NASDAQ.
Yep.
So the shareholders got shares in MindMed for their Broadway shares, and shares in American Pacific for their Broadway shares. So it was a 2-for-1, and a very good deal for them.
Wow, that's crazy. Early days of MindMed. Who would have thought we'd be talking about origin stories of MindMed, and kind of the early success there. Crazy crossover. So there you go. Okay, well
Yeah.
that's an awesome win. And so you do that, and then tell me how you get lucky enough to come back to the company.
Well, I'm of course reading the press releases like every shareholder, and on October 21, I think 2019, the University of Toronto and University of British Columbia announced that 83% of the patients they followed for 4.5 years in this clinical trial had healing of ulcers that would otherwise not heal, pain relief, for which is unheard of, and had saved their limbs from otherwise certain amputation. The stock, a junior biotech, when it gets a result like that, the stock should explode, and the stock traded down, and 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 then on November 19th, the then CEO resigned, and I thought, like, wow, this is not lining up at all. so I gave the remaining director a call and said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, we had board resignations where we needed a director to in order to relist and get, and we're broke." And I said, "Well, number one, I'm a qualified director, and number two, I know this company better than anybody. I'll raise you all the money you need. Let's join forces." He said, "Sure." So I went out and met him in Vancouver and rejoined that month, late November 2019, became president again December, and announced January 2nd we'd raised $3 million to move the company forward.
Yeah, awesome. And then how do you become the CEO? Like give me through how that happened.
Yeah, so well, there were a number of people at the table who said they could raise money for the company, and so I said, prove it. I'll raise a million, you raise a million, and they uh, were unable to raise any money. So I ended
Wow.
up raising the 3 million, and after closing that transaction, became CEO.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, here. Well, there you go. There's a full story for people that are interested. Pretty crazy. Some interesting background. I know we'll get some questions. My final question for you is just now walk me through, as the CEO, knight in shining armor is back. What does your day-to-day, week-to-week look like now, and kind of, today's, Hemostemix?
Sure. So the company has to reestablish production. It has to close out this clinical trial, announce the phase 2 results, announce a phase 3, finance through that, and then and then really I'm going to the Retoso Family Office Summit at the end of June. Hope to make some very good contacts there and raise money at the family office level, bring in some really good partners.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, that's pretty good kind of next step pipeline, but pretty cool. Look, Thomas, thanks so much for doing this. This is a great first video, and I know if anyone has questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I know Thomas, pretty transparent guy, could probably give you the no BS answers, and we look forward to doing future ones. But Thomas, anything else about your background that you wanted to cover that we didn't?
I think we covered it off, Jason.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining. Looking forward to chatting again soon.
Likewise.